But now we're going to turn to Lieutenant General Flynn and talk to him about the Russian collusion hoax and military matters. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn is a subject matter expert on diplomacy, statecraft, foreign policy, strategy formation, defense, intelligence, and many, many other areas. Of course, you know him as the person who was persecuted by the Obama administration and let go by, unfortunately, Donald Trump over just a bunch of bogus stuff. And now we know the truth because the Presidential Daily Brief came out really indicating that Obama changed the intelligence assessment. And from there, it led to the whole Russia collusion hoax that he got caught up on. But DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, has now released many of those documents. And so the truth is coming out. And General Flynn joins me today to discuss that, military readiness, and particularly West Point, something near and dear to my heart, as my listeners know. General Flynn, I mean, just, when the documents all came out last month, what was your initial reaction?
I was not surprised, not one bit. I mean, I've known all this all along, and I'm just glad that we finally, have this level of exposure for what these people are trying to do, which is to undermine and basically destroy America. This is a group of people, and it's not just 12 people, or 15. It's not a small group. It is a very, very vast body of people in many, many organizations, and they go all the way down into the structure of the national security apparatus of the United States. And this is a very, very serious thing. It's very dangerous for the future of our country. It is not over by any stretch of the imagination. The people that are part of it are continuing to basically undermine the country. They are working very, very hard. And until they're all put into prison, for long sentences, they will continue. And then their minions down below will continue. Once we start to really hold these people accountable, and they're literally, these people need to go to prison for what they did to this country. Now, never mind what they did to me. I mean, that's, I was the first target too, by the way, not I was caught up in it. I mean, they came after me very hard in 3 different Oval Office meetings now that we know of. I've known about them the whole time, but 3 different Oval Office meetings with President Obama addressing me. We can't have this guy, part of the Trump administration. And then the final one that they held was the one that they really decided how they were going to do it, and they were going to bring their minions in the media along with them, right? The Mockingbird media, as Tulsi has reminded everybody, actually does exist.
So those had to be some of the darkest days of your entire life, being essentially shunned by the people that you helped support and get into office. Was there any back channel confirmation by Trump that he still believed in you, that he couldn't do anything else but essentially let you go for political purposes to save his administration?
No, there was no back channel. I didn't talk to him until after my case was dismissed.
Wow.
Which was almost 4 years later. And it was the day it was dismissed. I talked to him that day. That's the first time I talked to him.
Was that because he wanted to have some sort of degree of separation, be able to tell people that he wasn't talking to you?
Yeah, he needed to have it, and I needed to have it. He needed to have it. I needed to have it. I mean, it was a legal nightmare for the country, and not just me. I mean, and I think that's the problem for people, Jeannie, is that everybody goes, woe is you. No, not woe is me. These people are trying to destroy the United States of America. They have every desire. This is not about Republicans and Democrats anymore. Everybody has to start to understand it. I don't know what your audience is or who listens to you, but I'm telling you, if the American people don't get it, they're never going to get it. Those that don't get it by now will never get it. And enough people, thank God, got it during the 2024 election. As you know, having run for office in other times, the 2020 election was the coup. They actually took the country over.
Yeah.
They stole the country in 2020, stole it outright. The Russiagate, if you think Russiagate is a bombshell, wait until the evidence comes out about 2020. It's going to be horrible.
Well, I can't wait because I ran in 2020. So I'm excited for all that to come out about the fake votes and the fake voters. So it's a very dark period. You're going through this. You finally get the case dismissed. You've got the 2020 election and Biden gets elected. Did you ever expect 9 years later that these documents were going to come out, or were you shocked?
Well, I think much of the stuff that we're seeing did come out. Okay, a lot of it has come out. Now, there are some things that did not come out, like the meeting in 8 December in the Oval Office, 8 December of 2016 in the Oval Office, led by Obama. That one was not available to the public. Those of us that were caught up in these different things, all this evidence was part of trials and such like that. So a lot of the new stuff are basically additional information that we now know that just affirms what actually happened. I mean, there's some unredacted files that have now come out. So in the past, a lot of it came out redacted. So there's a lot of unredacted stuff now. So you know exactly who some of these hoodlums are. And these are serious crimes directed against, the United States of America. This is what they call subversion and espionage directed against the United States of America, which is a very, very serious issue.
In various interviews, you've mentioned that you were targeted by the deep state because you were a direct threat to their operations. What were you aware of about the deep state that you wanted to rein in when you first took office? What were you aware of that we should be aware of? And what agencies were the most problematic?
Well, the first answer is the most problematic is the CIA. And then you can go down the list there, start there. But the war in Ukraine, okay, because the war in Ukraine didn't start with Joe Biden. It started under Obama, okay? So the war in Ukraine, what was going on in Afghanistan and Iraq, the amount of money that's holed up in black programs, okay? The amount of money that's holed up in presidential finding programs. I mean, you're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars, and just the deep-seated corruption that is a permanent part of the CIA, and then of course other parts of the intelligence community and the State Department. By that fact, most people don't know, Jeannie, is that the U.S. intelligence community, about 70% of it is inside of the DOD. So everybody goes CIA, but the largest part of the U.S. intelligence community resides in the Department of Defense, and that's why the Secretary of Defense is the only secretary in the purview of the President of the United States that holds a couple of titles, legal titles that he's able to execute. That's Title 10, which is really for the military, and Title 50. So the only other person that holds Title 50 authorities is the President of the United States, the Director of the CIA, and the Director of National Intelligence. They hold Title 50 authorities. And the President, of course, holds all the titles, Title 10, Title 3. The Secretary of Defense holds Title 50 and Title 10, which are a big deal. That's in the weed stuff, but, I understand that. So that's why they came after me, because it's not just about reorganizing boxes on a line and block chart. This is about tearing apart a system that is so corrupt. I mean, what else did we learn since Trump has been in office? We learned that the CIA was directly involved in the murder of a president of the United States, JFK. So it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. They were directly involved in the murder of a president of the United States of America. So we now know that. That's not the word or the phrase conspiracy theory comes from the JFK assassination. And that phrase was designed and developed by the CIA to beat anybody who popped up and said that CIA, the government, was involved in the death of JFK. So because there was people back then that were saying that, okay? And so what did they do? They said, we got to fight back, and here's how we're going to fight back. Anybody that's of any substance in Congress or big ticket people, influential people in whatever party, and even in the Democrat Party, they went after them. They would call them a conspiracy theorist, and they're minions in the media, in the Mockingbird media, which is real. That's not a conspiracy theory. They were also part of the effort to just shut down any voice that mattered by calling them a conspiracy theorist, and then they would write articles about them. I mean, I've had thousands and thousands of articles written about me where they've said that the conspiracy theorist General Michael Flynn disgraced this and that. I haven't been wrong about anything, nothing, and so I don't pat myself on the back about it. But that's why they targeted me. That's why they targeted me, because, with the likes of a Donald Trump who knew nothing about Washington, D.C., or he knew very little about Washington, D.C. He was wet behind the ears, so to speak, and he now knows it. He knew it then as he was going through it, and he certainly learned a lot after he left the 45th administration, and they just brutally attacked him at every angle, from every angle, and now the American public see it. The American public see it. Now it's kind of like, what do we do about it?
Well, that's true. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll be right back with General Flynn because, as he noted, the Department of Defense, and that'd be the Secretary of Defense, has a lot of power over a lot of this. That's where I want to turn next, is to military leadership and what's gone awry with it. We'll be right back. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. This is Jeannie Ives, and you're listening to Lieutenant General Flynn, and we had just had a full discussion about the revelation that the Obama administration actually did create the Russian collusion hoax. And there's been a lot of not necessarily conspiracies. These are intentional problems. And as General Flynn was telling us, the Department of Defense has a lot of power when it comes to the national intelligence. Well, they have a lot of power in other ways as well. And honestly, in my opinion, they have failed in many respects. The Heritage 2024 Index of American Strength Analysis rated the services, and they gave the Army an overall rating of marginal, the Navy a weak rating, the Air Force very weak. The overall U.S. military power was considered weak, and only the Marine Corps was rated as strong. And it's not just this overall power index. When you look at shipbuilding to manpower readiness, we are suffering. And I lay this all at the hands of military leadership. And I wanted to hear from Lieutenant General Flynn how he feels about that and how we get our military back on track.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's a big question. And I think Pete Hegseth is doing a wonderful job, actually. It's a big department. There's a lot of complexity to it. We are in the middle of war, so we have a war going on. We have wars, plural, that we are supporting around the world. We have forces in at least 150 countries around the world, if not more, certainly at all the embassies. We have some level of military security force. Usually in the Marine Corps, there are all kinds of challenges that Pete is going through to restructure the entirety of the military right now in the various commands. Never mind trying to figure out how do we develop leaders for the future, starting with ROTC, OCS, the academies. All the academies, and all the way up to how do we pick general officers and flag officers. And frankly, even in the NCO, the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps, which is something that the United States military is the only military in the world that actually has that thing called a Non-Commissioned Officers Corps, right? No other military has it. They might have sergeants in the British military. They might have some type of sergeant, in another military somewhere, but there's no such thing as an NCO Corps that we have anywhere else on the planet. So that has to be protected so religiously and treated as a platform to develop leaders throughout our force. So that's just one part of many components that Pete Hegseth has to deal with. And frankly, the secretaries of the services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, the service chiefs, if any of them, now the current crop, I believe, of the secretaries, the service secretaries, they were all new appointees. So they're usually political appointees. They might have some good background here and there. Matt Lohmeyer, the number 2 at the Air Force, is probably the best right now of all of them. And he's got some background, but they're all pretty good, the service secretaries. But it's the chiefs that I want to hone in on, the chiefs and the vice chiefs and the ACMAC, the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, they call it the ACMAC. Those people, if those individuals were in the Biden administration for any length of time, and they all were, then they all need to put their retirement papers in, and because they all basically fell into the trap of keeping their mouths shut. To me, showing a level of political and frankly of sort of cowardice, right, where they weren't honest with themselves and they weren't honest with their commander in chief, who could barely finish a sentence, and they all knew it. So, I mean, I'm of the opinion where there has to be a clean sweep, and I'm really adamant about this. And there has to be a restructuring of even how we select flag officers, because if I'm going to train a private or I'm going to train a lieutenant to do something, to be something, to you're a West Point graduate, duty, honor, country, right?
Right.
I mean, they removed that, right? They removed it, but now we're trying to put it back in like, we never really meant it, but yeah, they did mean it because they were woke. Okay. And this idea about being woke, it's not just being woke. What does it mean? It means accepting socialism. It means accepting Marxism in our institutions and in our government, because that's what the left has done. Biden was a figurehead in a stolen election in 2020, and that is going to come out. And so, I mean, I think where we're at right now, it remains to be seen. There's going to have to be accountability. Not only in the political realm, but in the military realm as well. And I know that Pete Hegseth, if you saw the latest video from him that I think it was last night or today, he put out about Microsoft has been allowing the Chinese to operate within our systems, within our communication systems and our other very technical, very classified systems for 10 years. 10 years. And we're just now learning this. So now there's got to be a counterintelligence assessment done. There's going to have to be a subversion and espionage assessment done. I mean, these are not small things. These are very, very big things, Jeannie. These are things that matter to our country. If we don't get this resolved, we have 3.5 years, and Trump doesn't have 3.5 years left. Trump maybe has a year and a half until they start, everybody starts running for president of the United States again. So Trump has to execute with a level of diligence and discipline, and he's going to have to depend on some of the people around him. And frankly, they're not all going to jump to the task. They're not all going to meet the standard. They're not.
Well, that's definitely true. I will say Frank Luntz was on Fox News last night. I caught this. It was just strange. He had an interview with West Point cadets, and he was like so, into it. He said, this place has changed in 8 months. It's making a difference in America's security compared to other universities. You got to be proud about these. These kids are And I was just like, okay, that's not necessarily true. We have a lot of work to do.
West Point has like 26. You can get like 26 degrees at West Point. Why?
Exactly.
Why? I think that's the number. It's like 26 degrees. I mean, if you want a degree in basket weaving, go to the University of Rhode Island, which is where I graduated from. If you want a liberal arts degree, go to a liberal arts college or institution. West Point, the Annapolis, the United States Naval Academy, the United States Air Force Academy should be training people for war. That's it. And that's what it was designed to be at the beginning. It actually did a decent job up through World War II, thank God. And then we just, over the years, we've lost sight. We haven't won a war since World War II. We have not, I'll say it again, we have not won a war since World War II. And any general or admiral, retired or active duty, that wants to say, well, we win all the battles, I would tell them, you're stupid, you're incompetent, you're a fool for believing that kind of thing. Yeah, I got squad level. But if we can't win a war, and the reason why we don't win a war is because the cowardice of the flag officers at the very top of our institution in the military, they refuse to stand in front of a president of the United States and say, Mr. President, we need to have clear, unadulterated objectives that allow us to win, that don't allow us to participate forever and ever and ever in these wars that are just endless. Vietnam, individual replacement, total disaster, 55,000, maybe 60,000 killed in action, right? And then you jump from there all the way to Afghanistan, Iraq, you name it, thousands and thousands dead. And what do we get out of it? Nothing, zero. Ukraine will be the same thing. And we better be careful with what's happening down in the Southern Hemisphere right now.
Well, General Flynn, we'll have to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for this interview. And I know that you're going to be on top of this, especially as a member of the Board of Visitors at West Point. I feel like the institution will be in much better hands with your oversight. So I want to thank you so much for taking on that additional duty. And God bless you and all your work.
Absolutely, Jeannie. Thank you. Thanks for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
God bless.